I've gotten this interest in recent months in urban exploration content on YouTube. Mainly, I like watching the proper people go into abandoned malls, offices, asylums, and other kinds of buildings. Exploring a place that is so frozen in time that it transforms from a business or institution into a time capsule for the era in which it functioned scratches this kind of nostalgic itch for me in a way very similar to how liminal spaces and source maps do. Part of it was probably that in videos like their exploration of the Richland Mall, it felt like they were walking through a real life source map. Maybe that's a pretty wild claim, or it otherwise just sounds kind of silly to be hearing out of my mouth. But chances are the nearest mall to you was built in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s. So in many cases, they'll have aesthetic sensibilities from the decade in which they were built. In the case of the Richland Mall, the version most would be familiar with was built through the range of 1988 to 1990. It initially had a skylit food court that would later be shuttered as a new enclosed spot would become the food court's location in later years. But even near the end of its life, Richland Mall's golden, tiled, and pastel visuals remained prevalent. When it came time to check the place out after its closure, the strange feeling of canopsia where you're in a place that was once full of life that's now become pretty empty. It hit in the same way it often would in a source map, where you hear all this busy ambience in the background, but you don't see a soul around anywhere. And in the source engine, it of course isn't just limited to abandoned buildings like it might normally be in real life, barring extreme examples like Pripyat and the rest of the region surrounding Chernobyl. Entire towns and cities devoid of people compound this feeling with often strange, unfitting ambience from Half-Life 2 to feel like a completely alien setting. A video from The Librarian points out this cause of unease fairly well, so I'm linking that as well as every video I'm referencing here in the description. Older source maps often serve as time capsules for the time in which they were created as well. A lot of times you'll visit older ones and see images plastered onto walls that have meme or ad references from the 2000s. The way the source engine keeps living on, at least for me, feels rooted partially in this warm nostalgia feeling. There's a strong feeling of that idea of art imitating life and life imitating art. People like to put places they've seen in real life or even in their dreams into a virtual representation, and what better place to do it than here? Games as platforms may be growing exponentially through examples like Fortnite and Roblox, but they just don't have the same dated feel or believable abandoned space vibe that Source often instills. The Source engine is a perfect pairing for creating spaces that center around these feelings of liminality and distant memories, feelings that malls are often associated with as well. Even so, it's content like videos from the proper people that make me wish for a newer game to come out that internalizes what makes Urbex intriguing. Something that takes its time in its approach, makes the spaces you explore feel at least once lived in and meaningful, and generally puts the focus on exploration without resorting to scares to fill dead air or lulls in the action. Urbex to me is an activity based not only in exploring cool spaces, but also in solving mysteries to keep history alive when the places where it can be experienced might not always be around. There is an upcoming game called Urban Explorer that seems to have this idea taken to heart, though it appears to still be a pretty heavy work in progress based on the trailers. There's quite a bit of action-y moments in the newer trailer with mechanics of parkour, deploying drones, and even running away from vicious dogs. But I like that at least on paper, these shouldn't get in the way of the exploration part once you're inside the building you're attempting to infiltrate. It's also still at least worth having to emphasize that Urbex isn't as simple as walking through the front door. The owners of these buildings often don't want the public getting in, so there is still security to take into account. You get to study the place before you head over there so that you know what hazards you'll need to avoid, and you can also reference paper maps of the building you're in as an analog method of getting around, which I think is really cool. I'm excited to see this game released one day, but until then, we need to check out other options. The other major option being touted as a game equivalent to Urbex is, well, before I say the title, I could start maybe with its description. A co-op horror extraction game where you use proximity voice chat, stealth, and teamwork to take items out of abandoned places. And that game is called Repo! No, it's not called Repo, but You get the idea that with these mechanics and how it looks in the trailer, that this is another game in the emerging friend slop genre. This one is just called Urbex. I'm not saying that this is going to be objectively a bad game. Honestly, it will probably be perfectly fine and enjoyable for a group of friends looking for a new friend slot game to enjoy. But giving this game the simple title of Urbex feels like a bit of a misrepresentation to me. This is more of a personal feeling, but games like this have always felt like they've put more focus on the items you're taking out as well as on the goofy friend interactions as opposed to the actual exploration of the map you're on. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. Typically in games like Lethal Company, I'm not focused on exploring the depths of the facilities on each planet. I'm trying to get in, get a bunch of valuable trinkets, and get the hell out before a walking nutcracker with a shotgun gives me the gift of a second asshole while putting our team in deeper debt. There's this constant element of pressure to perform or to look over my shoulder in friend slop games, so I don't really frequently get that time to slow down and appreciate my surroundings. Regardless, this game isn't out yet either, so still gotta keep looking. Normally, this would be the spot to ask, well, okay, then where does that leave us? But given the fact I've already spent a good chunk of this intro hyping up the Source engine, you can probably already tell where I'm going with this. Garry's mod is the best Urbex game you can get in 2026, and it's been the best for years, if not decades. You might not have analog maps to reference for each map yet, but you have tens of thousands of maps available, with new ones being added every day. You'd straight up never run out of new places to explore in game, and an engine that is known for its relationship with liminal spaces and a great selection of exploration and RP maps with tons of different buildings to explore. You get to make your own fun with this game too, with even more scripted add-ons like weapons, entities, NPCs, and tools to play the game basically in your own way. Really, no two people play Gmod in the same way, so at least for me, I want to record this video today in the same way that people will often record their own Urbex videos on camcorders, so we're going to record our own Urbex videos in the maps we're visiting with the cinematic camera mod. Tag along as we check out a few different maps that reflect the types of places that urban explorers might typically frequent. We're out here in a woodland area that is in the midst of reclaiming this old psychiatric hospital. The roads here have been left long unmaintained. You can see the weeds growing up through the cracks in the pavement. Driving a car this far down was a bad call, so I left it back a ways to walk the rest of the distance to this building. Just from the exterior, you can see a lot of broken windows, missing chunks of brick, and even caved-in sections of the floors and roof above. Even the awning above the front doorway is barely holding together. At some point, the front doors were ripped off the hinges, so anyone willing to traverse under this awning can waltz right in. You can see security kiosks to the left and right upon entering, but both of their front windows have been boarded up. The boards were probably added to prevent entry from people like me after everything was closed, but with the front doors missing, it doesn't really matter anymore. As far as the layout goes, off to the right is a storage room with garage-style entrances for inventory intake. You can see brick walls in the hallway here, and painted walls in the connected rooms. The time hasn't really been kinda either. Not much is left in here other than a few shelving units with miscellaneous items. The room itself in here is pretty intact, but I doubt the generator works after all this time, though. Off to this side, you have the two medical rooms doctors use for surgery. Despite that, it's pretty clear these are in some of the worst shape. Black spots all over the walls, and these metallic beds are dirty and rusted. There's even blood still left on this one, and it's completely dried at this point. You couldn't pay me to willingly get checked up on in here. I'd bet even in the peak of this place, it was still below par for sanitary purposes. This room still has some machines left inside. The beds in here, though, aren't much better than next door. There's even some faucets in this room. Why not have them in both? There's a completely broken down elevator in the main hall. The door is stuck open, and the elevator platform itself is rusted over. There's a big hole in the roof up top, and the ladder is coming up off the wall, too. Here's what's left of this decaying mess hall. Only 3 tables are still in here, and a quarter of the tiles are missing. Only one window pane seems to still be intact. The others are either broken or boarded up. Paint is peeling everywhere, and there's a lot of damage to the walls, too. Possibly more black mold. You can see this window actually has foliage from the pine tree outside poking in when it normally would have been kept out by intact glass. Up now on the second floor, and the paint damage is way worse. The walls on this side of the building are almost completely devoid of their original paint job. On the other side of the floor, you can see most of the windows are either broken or boarded up. Wow, it turns out actually a large chunk of the upper floors and even the roof are missing here. Here's some of the padded rooms. All you got in here was a little tear-resistant mattress, nothing else. The usage of these declined a lot after the 1950s, but they're still out there. Past this old security office, you have some regular residential rooms for patients. Pretty standardized, each with these old metallic bed frames. Not much else of note. No decorations to be seen in any of them. Here's an office room that actually still has a desk left inside it. Not in bad shape. The windows, at least, could be better. Same with the walls. Now we're in that common gathering area. You could see some of the floorboards all over the floor here from up above. Some either pillars or parts of the wall. Over to the right, you see there's rubble from the roof itself. The roof damage makes this area completely wide open from up above. Wow, you can't even easily access the next floor from here. It's completely gone from this staircase. I'd have to jump over. I think the frame in between the padded room and the hallway is just a little too thin. More residential rooms here. But this one actually has its door ripped off. Inside actually has some decorations, if you can call them that, in the form of various sticky notes. Whoever lived in this one definitely had their own interests, potentially at odds with the staff. Given these were never removed, it could have possibly reached a climax late in the life cycle of this place. And the next room has notes on the wall too, plus some missing chunks of the wall in the corner. Looks like another explorer was here before me, assuming whoever was living here didn't add this themselves. Huh. A lot of the carpet is missing here, so you can just see the floorboards. Remaining carpet's just really dusted over too, though, so it's not much better. Looks like another desk is left lying around here. Seems like this wooden beam is the only way up to the last floor. At the very top, we have a dedicated office space for cubicles. Only it looks like these are all made from wood and metal framing. Even that framing's rusted badly now. This would have been added near the end of this building's lifetime. possibly in a rushed fashion to quickly improve productivity out of desperation given the nature of its makeup. But even that was still most likely decades ago at this point. I've now entered the reborn version of the International Mall, underground mall in the District 7 city of Ascot that was unveiled in 1965. It became a beacon for its community to gather here to perform and create as well as shop, and its design was successful enough to cause other malls to model after it. It ran until 2020 when COVID came into play, but the pandemic wasn't the only reason the mall closed up shop. Its founder and original CEO, Oliver Hendrickson, passed from cancer in 2015, leaving a Silicon Valley hotshot by the name of Ben Anderson to take the reins. It said he displayed his collection of luxury cars out front of the mall entrance to patrons' frustration the day after he took over, and then he proceeded to engage in an extreme anti worker way of management that led to a massive strike. When the money dried up, he skipped out and was later found dead in an alleyway, presumably murdered. With no new CEO taking over from that point, the community came back to take over what remained of the mall and turned it back into a positive space for themselves. The lighting in here from the wall lights scattered around is incredible. I love the reflections bouncing off the water. To the right of the entrance is what used to be a pho restaurant, but I'm not seeing any kitchen equipment left over. This might have been in the midst of being repurposed for something, but it's hard to say what. Above this fountain in the middle, you can just make out caustics from the water reflecting onto the ceiling, which is really cool. Right here looks to be staged for public performance. Again, you get this cool dim lighting to set a specific kind of tone. There's also some kind of COVID related signage on the wall, so that helps to tell the story of what happened here. At the end of this hall, you get a really cool contrast of pink and green neon colors. There's actually some damage here, though. I read that there was at least still maintenance work being done by older community members, but I figure without much funding, that's taking some time. You can still see a lot of cardboard boxes and construction equipment laying around here, so this isn't happening overnight. Another little stage next to the planter, a pro strike sign that went up next to it. If this was able to be kept up in here, I have to imagine Ben Anderson's grasp on power prior to him closing this mall and firing everyone was pretty thin. I like how several of the signs around this mall are promoting local talks hosted by community members. It feels like it's also serving as a convention center of sorts where anyone from the city can host their own little panel on what matters to them. You can tell the people living around here took this mall very close to heart and it meant a lot to them. This one's promoting a talk about the history of typefaces. I think here we're starting to see what became of some of the larger store spaces in the mall. Not really seeing many business names representing them anymore. They're just kind of being used for whatever the community sees fit at this point. This one looks like it's being used for filming some shows or movies, given the green screen. I can't believe today was a good day. Here are some more repurposed storefronts. To the left, there's some more pho-related signage, but this space is a lot bigger than I'd expect for something like that. There's also meeting tables and various unrelated shelving units here. Not sure what this place is trying to be. Oh wait, here's another sticky note. Mike brings some of the food crates over to the downstairs concert bar. We're hosting something cool. Also, don't bother with messaging down here. Cell service is shit. Love you, babe. He's a keeper, Mike. Don't let her down. We'll see you down here. There's a downstairs concert bar. You should see where that is. Found an access point to a lower floor in a well-hidden room in a completely unlit spot. It's like they wanted to keep it a secret. Jeez, this isn't just a concert bar, it's an entire other floor of new spaces. I'm kind of in awe, I don't know what to say. You can still see how lived in this place is. You still have like a radio sitting on the box, different plants and other evidence of people planning to decorate this area as a hangout. People even spent a lot of time just hanging out down here. Well, here's the concert bar they were referring to. It feels even more spacious down here than it does upstairs. We can tell just from the get-go here that a lot more memories and recordings were made here over the years. Oh, and another sticky note. What are some good free sans serif fonts? I need them for posters. Helvetica, Futura, Avant-Garde Gothic. Free fonts, dumbass. Those are paid fonts. I'd get my ass sued. Just use Google Fonts. guess when you don't have much cell service, you kind of just have to write everything, even if it doesn't mean all that much in the grand scheme of things. Can you believe how long this lower floor goes on for? Seems like in a few of these stores, the original lighting on the ceiling actually still works. Seeing some actual white lights on the ceiling feels more jarring once you've gotten used to the colored wall lights. I guess technically these feel more like stage lights or floodlights, though, so maybe they don't fully count. This spot has some nightclub-esque vibes, like I'm in a line leading up to a bouncer. If this area has one, I imagine he'd sit at this small table. Given the meeting table, though, maybe it's also just some secret clubhouse area for some younger adults. Hey, another concert poster. This one goes on for a long-ass time. I've just snuck under a hole in the gate of this abandoned amusement park called Funland. Studying it online, it was described as one of the hottest amusement parks of the 80s with multiple expansions and franchises planned. However, the park was permanently closed after the owner was found to be a multinational arms and narcotics dealer. Ever since, the park has been placed into the hands of local authorities and left to rot. And God, this place is huge. There isn't much left, but back in the day you'd have tons of rides out here. They at least still have the statue and fountains in the middle. Over to the right, it looks like most of the food stands are still here. And looks like I can find my way in off to the side over here. Times have not been kind to this stand. A lot of tiles are missing. You can see large swaths of water damage on the walls. It smells absolutely rancid in here. I don't even want to open the refrigerators. I'd probably catch a disease without a respirator on. I should probably back out of this one. Doesn't look like the other ones have any easy ways in currently, but you got Beef Boy Stew over here. Over there is a Georgia pork barrel. Then you got a sushi stand here. Over at the end is a ramen stand. Would have been nice to have more spots for typical carnival food like popcorn and funnel cakes and cotton candy, but for what it's worth, most of these were pretty high quality food spots as far as amusement park food spots go. Here's the big Ferris wheel. Normally I'd ignore a police sign such as this in pursuit of a close-up shot, but something is willing me not to. Almost as if there's some sort of invisible wall stopping me from progressing. Road Rage Bumper Cars. You can see the fading on the sign. This building hasn't been touched in decades. You can see the grass inside, and all around here is starting to come up out from under the concrete. There's graffiti all over these buildings, but I gotta say the quality of the art is pretty damn good. I can't believe they never removed the actual bumper cars from here. Wait, the lights are still on for the arcade? And the door's open. This is unbelievable. This place is damaged to hell, but there's a game turned on over there. Tactical intervention, huh? I remember the insanely loud highway level this game had. Not bad as part of the arcade game selection. Most of the other remaining cabinets seem to be busted, but it's crazy that this game is turned fully on, let alone the fact that it's intact. Has someone been messing around with the cabinets in here? Oh. You can see several of the tiles from the drop ceiling fell in here and water got in. The lower pit of the floor here got hit the hardest with flooding, and the still water smell in here is just awful. Can't stay long in here either. Everyone is a smartass if you're a dumbass. True. You can see the sign here saying that this area is closed off, but it looks like someone left the fence here open. Looks like off this way is a peanut gallery. And all the way over here is the Whistling Dragon. Now, this coaster was their big money maker in the beginning. You can see how long it's been just sitting here over the years. The sign is completely weathered at this point. Doesn't look like we can find a way in, though. But just who is this guy? Kind of reminds me of, like, a logo from that really awful Golem game that came out the other year. You think they left the security office unlocked? Holy shit, it is unlocked. Still have the computers turned on? What? Are those assault rifles that have been stored in here?
Oh shit.